so I've been dancing my whole life. My earliest dance teacher was my mom, if we talk about learning dance, but I grew up dancing. Like it's a huge part of like a natural way of being with my family. Like at my grandma's retirement party, I was dancing with a bunch of 60 and 70-year-old people. It was super common to do line dances and stuff with your family, to learn new dances. Like a lot of musicians, I'm from Dallas, and Dallas has a music scene that is very much, Dallas and Houston are two cities in Texas that have a music scene that's very much connected to dance.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the artists, if you know that song, Teach Me How to Teach Me, you probably don't, huh? It's super popular. That's crazy that you guys don't know that song. But there's a lot of music that in that time is made particularly to be danced to. And so as a young kid, I remember in my summer camps, I would show up, and then one way that they would get us all to cool off is they would just play songs that we all just knew the dances to. We wouldn't say we were dancers, but of course, it's like the music and the dance is kind of just...
It's like the Macarena. Everybody knows the YMCA, the Macarena, but like a better version.
It's like a better version.
Yeah.
So,
not to put down the Macarena, but...
No, but yeah. So I grew up, I think, in a very... my relationship to dance is not so sterile, I want to say. I can count on one, maybe two hands. No, if it comes to taking classes in a dance studio, I can count on one hand the amount of times that I've actually done that. A lot of my experience, maybe two hands. In my profession, my adult life, I've taken more classes, but when I was younger, I never took classes. I was just always trying to learn myself, which ironically enough is part of the reason why this is so natural for me, because being someone who was 12 years old at the time of the internet and YouTube was showing up, that was the technology in my hands. Then if I wanted to dance, I would see a movie that had cool dancing, and then I would go and I would search, how do you break dance? How do you chest pop? These kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so then I'm a little 12-year-old boy practicing my six step and my turtle freeze and stuff because I'm interested in that. But I started dancing, I think, in a cultural way. My mom eventually, to keep us busy, because I grew up in a very unstable family environment when I was younger. My dad was in prison, in and out of prison a lot. So my mom raised us pretty heavily in church. And when I was younger, around 6 or 7, we started to play music and dance at the church that we grew up in, which is a church that's smaller than this tent that my great-grandfather built with his bare hands. He played saxophone, and I think he lived till I was 15. He was born in 1928. And he lived until 2014, 2013. So 2012, way earlier than that. I can do math, 2011, 2012. But anyways, he played saxophone, and we grew up playing music and stuff. My brothers and I would sing. I would play piano. My little brother played drums, and we would also do little dances and stuff. And so that was a huge part of how I was enculturated. The internet came. I was watching movies at this time Step Up and You Got Served. And then of course, you're hearing the dance music at the time you're enculturated by. I was a kid that liked to read books a lot. I was really nerdy. I was really, really nerdy. And I got bullied a lot. So dancing was something that made me feel cool. That was my escape. That was my claim to fame. I had the stereotypical kind of high school experience in my sophomore year where I was super not cool. And then I did a show in a theater thing, and I got to do a little move or whatever in the theater thing, and everybody was like, "Wow, I didn't know you could do that." And then all of a sudden I gained a bunch of social capital. So
that happened to all of us, right? All of us we learned a rock step, and the world around us is dang.
But yeah. So for me, I think my relationship with dance, it was something that really helped me, because I got bullied pretty badly. So and because the bullying was really bad when we were really young, then we got homeschooled, which always helps when you go to high school in a public school setting.
Homeschool makes you so normal, you guys.
Yeah, it makes you so normal. So I got bullied a lot, and so I clung to dance as a way to socialize, not only with my little brothers and my friends at church, but also it was something that made me feel like I was bigger than I felt when I was being bullied. So
yeah,
that's my life.
Well, let's when did you start watching vintage Lindy Hop clips?
Okay, so I got into Lindy Hop in October of 2017, and because of my experience with other dance forms, I quickly shot up in my local scene. In the States, they don't have this thing where you take classes for 6 months at a time. We in Columbus, where I was at, I actually met Victor. Victor taught me how to swing out the first time. But we in Columbus, where I was at, there was this bar called Big Bar, and the community would just meet there on Tuesdays, and there would be a 30-minute kind of session, and then dancing for 2 hours. So I would go to those 30-minute sessions, and then I would just grind on the social dance floor. Mm-hmm. I ended up submitting a thing to be a Frankie Manning ambassador. I went to Harangue. They funded me to go to Harangue, and I had a pretty abrasive experience with a Swedish instructor who essentially told me that what I was doing wasn't Lindy Hop, and I was super offended. But I had a perspective at the very beginning that was because I shot up so quickly in my local community, I had a perspective that was definitely pretty egotistical. I'm gonna make this cool again. I'm gonna be that guy, whatever. And then I went to Harangue, and I had a couple other experiences at this point, but all of it basically led to me realizing there's a lot that I actually don't know about jazz. And if I approach this whole thing with a super egotistical mindset of I'm gonna be the guy, then I probably miss out on all the cool things that I could learn. And so I realized that I didn't know a lot about jazz, and I started to do a lot of research after my first time at Harangue. Mm-hmm. I basically just started looking for all the clips that I could. Mm-hmm. And so, I started looking at stuff probably then, after the first time that I went to Harangue.
Yeah. So this is a selection that Tyedric has made for us. And I just want to preface this, the most famous ones, your Hells of Poppin' and your Day at the Races and things like that, are not in this. No shade to them. They're rightfully famous. They are amazing. But if we only showed you the famous ones, we would never see any of these. And so that's why we have the selection that we do, in part.
Yeah. And I just want to say this too. I exist in the context of community. This feels very pointed at me, and I am the product of the people that have poured into my life. So little story about because why I'm dancing has a lot to do with the first old video that I saw, which was A Day at the Races, and I saw A Day at the Races because of Victor. Victor was teaching the Shim Sham at our local university, and I randomly decided to come out. To hang out and do stuff. And as we were leaving that, at that time, I kind of saw dancing. This is going to sound bad, but I was this is just my fun little quirky hobby that I do with my weird white friends, Mm-hmm. And no, it was that's the way I thought about it. My friends, my other friends who are black would be why are you always doing that white people shit? They didn't have necessarily an understanding of perspective. And I think I was sharing something about how funny it is that I'm in this space. And Victor looked at me and was wait, but this dance is black, right? And I looked at him and I was what are you talking about? And then he showed me A Day at the Races. And we sat there and we watched it. And I had a kind of out-of-body experience looking at this clip. Because, like I said, I got into dance because I felt small. And in this clip, you see this woman is singing, these people are singing, all God's children got rhythm, maybe they don't got money, maybe they don't got shoes, all God's children got rhythm, but to push away their blues, yeah. And then you look at the setting and they're in a barn, and the kids, there's patches on their clothes, the kids' hair is not done, they don't have shoes on. It's very clear, I think it's that, it's a sugar pill, I think, of all of basically how I think about the dance and my relationship to it. You see people wear blackface right after the clip. There's very clear oppression. And yet, even in that movie where there's racism just kind of baked into the setting, and it's just supposed to be a fun satire of the black experience, even in that, what are they saying? They're saying yeah, we understand. Even the entertainers that are singing and dancing understand you want to make me feel small. Even in this moment, you want to reduce my experience to a caricature that you can laugh at. Mm-hmm. But I have a value that can't be denied. When someone says they're God's child, whether you're religious or not, it's I have a divine value. I have a value that's rooted in something that's greater than any of us. So whether it's God or the universe or I don't know, collective consciousness of humanity. They say like, yo, you can't take away our value, and we have this rhythm, and we have this way of dancing, and you can't like, and we have this way of singing and celebrating, and like, well, you can't make our spirits small. Like you can't like shrink them, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I unconsciously like saw all of that, and the dancing was just, I mean, it's awesome.
Beautiful.
Super badass. And then he showed me House of Poppin', which I had seen before actually, but I never connected that is what I was doing.
It probably looked pretty different.
Yeah. But I would have never had that moment of connection where I can sit here and when I talk to people and they like what I say in my classes about like the history of the dance and how it connects us and it empowers us. It doesn't separate us and make us feel bad, but it allows us to enjoy the dance in a way that's way bigger than just it being something fun that we pay for. I wouldn't have made that connection if it wasn't for a Victor in my life or like my friend Shannon Varner, who was both of our teacher early on. She's a great dancer from from Columbus, where we both grew up dancing, and she poured into me. And I called up another elder in the community who I won't say their name, but like I reached out to a lot of people. I reached out to Latasha. I reached out to and there have been other dancers since then that also are nerdy about this stuff. They're like, yo, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Have you seen this? Like all over. And people who really care helped me to like look in the right direction. And so this isn't a product of like, I'm just such a genius and now you learn my methods. It's more like the community was already supporting me and I'm an evolution of the community of people trying to invest in something that's good. And so this is a result of that and not just of me. Like I like my brain and I think I have good ideas, but also I've had a lot of support and this is a we thing and not a me thing. So I just want to say that.
Something that I think might be helpful if people got out their phones and they like wrote down clips that we don't have to make sure that you like, if you haven't seen Day at the Races or Hells of Pop and like write that down. And something I wanted to ask also is like, before we get into this, although I know like we're getting through, but like, how do you find new clips? You know what I mean? Does the YouTube algorithm like, you like Hells of Pop and do you like this? You know, like how do you dig up stuff?
It's a combined effort. So a lot of it, actually, there's a clip here that I've recently reached out to my friend Juan and I've been like, yo, you know who these tap dancers are? But I think I go out of my way to, when you start searching for certain things, YouTube does give recommendeds. And I have, over the course of my journey, since my first harangue, like I have a big playlist on my YouTube called Inspiration, and it's got some house stuff in it as well, and hip hop stuff in it. But like whenever I find a video that I'm like, that's dope, and I want to like hyper focus on some weird shit, I take it and I add it, and the thing probably has like 200 or 205 videos. I think that's like, I just go searching for it. So not just
like
Lindy Hop,
if you find out like somebody's name, like George Lloyd, who the heck is that? I'm going to find Lloyd, as many different things as I can with that guy. And so you can like find out about a person and research that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if I hear a name like Dawn Hampton, okay, cool. What's Dawn Hampton's history? Oh, I saw at one point in Dawn Hampton's history, she was a part of this group. Okay, cool. Well, who else was in that group? Who ran that group? What's that person's history? Who were they connected to? And like, that's the method you kind of parse out that way. It's not, I don't think it's so crazy, you know, but, you know, like, that's how I do it.
Yeah. Not everybody knows how to research, right?
Fair.
That's
No. Yeah.
Not a skill.
No, that's good. Okay, so actually, just to keep it more, because I tried to pick ones that weren't so typical because, I don't know, I woke up this morning sleepy and I realized I had to send Margot videos and I was on one.
You're good. Also, thank you, Margot, for like downloading.
Yes.
Yeah, on this Wi-Fi, he's like... Yeah.
So a quick aside about eldership and why that's important in the first place. In my community, like we really respect like the passage of years, or at least that's the way that I was raised. So I told you about my great grandfather, and he was someone who like it felt like my entire extended family, him and my great grandmother were like when they were alive, we were supporting them. Like there was just like the life that you've lived is valuable wisdom, and we honor that experience and we respect that experience, and that's a part of how we want to carry our lives forward, you know? And so I think it's similar in these spaces. If you listen to Black dancers talk about certain individuals, we say like mama or like uncle or whatever, because these are just like ways that we talk about older people that we respect. So it's kind of, I can't really make it more clear than that, but it's like a really important thing in my culture to, yes, young people innovate, but you pay respect also to older people. Like when you show up in my grandmama's house, you have to greet her. Yeah, you have to greet everyone, especially the older individuals, my aunties, all my uncles, and so forth and so on. If I don't greet everyone, then I'm being rude because I didn't show proper respect. Like when we all sit down to eat, sometimes, see, I don't want to call it by a nickname now that I'm talking about family, but sometimes my grandmama, my great grandmama she would eat first, which we typically try to feed them first, and then a lot of times she said, "Nah, feed them babies," and like we would eat them because she was someone who was nurturing and creating space. And that's the other thing is that as we try to respect them, they also nurture and respect us. Yeah. That's why we try to look at the elders in the first place. Also, generally, these guys who learned the dance, like they created or they innovated or they were part of it in its heyday, they just understand it better than us. And a lot of them are just better than us. So like, why not study them, away from the cultural thing. But this is a video from Sonny Allen's birthday. He had a birthday reunion. And Sonny Allen has Sugar Sullivan, Frankie Manning, Al Minns, like a whole bunch of elders that we appreciate. And they're all just kind of like having this reunion. You can see them like working out old steps and routines and stuff that they used to do when they were younger. And so that's what we're looking at. So I like this one. That's Al Minns, and I think that's Barbara. That's Sonny Allen and Sugar. Oh, and this is so good because you can see the difference in the way they swing out too. Like Sonny is super light on his feet and he stands up straight. Almonds bends a little bit more. He's not so light on his feet. He's kind of like really in the ground. And then that's Frankie.
The women are in heels. Yeah.
Yeah. Frankie says that move, by the way, is the basic of Lindy Hop. She said, nah, that's too much.
Yeah. This is one of the basics.
Okay, so did you see like the difference in their approach? Oh man, so dope. Almonds has on like jazz shoes. Sorry, Sonny has on the jazz shoes. I asked Sonny who this was and he didn't remember.
Oh.
That's Barbara, and I don't think I know his name right now. Frankie and Sugar. So I'm watching a video like this, and like when I first saw this, the first thing that I actually noticed was Sonny, and the differences in the way that he touches the floor versus like how Frankie does. And nowadays when I'm teaching like beginner classes and stuff in my exploration, I used to say like you always have to be like groundedness looks like bending your knees and getting low, like Frankie often did in his styling, and I think that's the popular kind of thing that we teach. I think that being grounded has more to do with how you relate to the floor, though, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to bend so much. Because when you see Al Minns dance, he has I keep on saying Al Minns, Sonny Allen dance, he has this like, his weight is really forward on his foot, and he's almost gliding through the floor.
Sonny Allen is like a generation after the Whitey's Lindy Hoppers.
He is. So Frankie would have been like third generation in the 30s, right?
I thought second generation.
Is that second generation?
Yeah, I thought so. Because it was like Stretch and Shorty. Yeah.
No, so Frankie would have been second, but by the 50s, they would have been
I could be wrong.
I actually talked with somebody recently because I think it was Ryan Francois, and I was like, no, but I would say that they're third because I forgot what I said, and he said maybe. Anyways, that's not here nor there. Frankie is older. He started dancing, I think it was really popular in the 30s. And a lot of these guys were dancers who were like doing it when they were young. They were teenagers in the 50s. So there's definitely some decades that have changed. And
I think it's very interesting to like watch clips like this. And then also like, if you guys have heard me talk, like, you know, I'm really hot on Margaret Badachik's Thesis, which I highly recommend you get. It's so good. But I thought it was so interesting because you see primarily like these other leads dancing, and they're from different generations than Frankie. And like one of the very interesting things about the way our scene has developed in the modern sense is like we've based ourselves off of the Whitey's Lindy Hopper template. You know, like as soon as you see Frankie dance, he is the copy that we're all Xeroxing ourselves off of, in a sense, which like he's an amazing prototype. You know what I mean? Like he's the GOAT. He's fantastic. You know, like all of those guys are amazing. I love the Hells of Pop and like Whitey's Lindy Hoppers people. But I feel like we've lost a lot of the flavoring that other Lindy Hoppers gave the dance because we paid so exclusive attention to Frankie. And that's like one of the reasons why watching these other old clips is so important, because it gives you like more inspiration of how to dance and how to relate to the music and how to relate to the floor. But also like a sense that Lindy Hop was bigger than just Hells of Popping. Big as Hells of Popping is.
Yeah. I've been questioning, even like trying to readjust. Well, do I really want to dance like that, or is that just like a mode of me, like a flavor of me, is to be so grounded and powerful? So I actually got the pleasure to hang out with Sonny Allen 2 weeks ago. We were in Italy together for a week, and I brought this clip up, and I was like, "Yo, let's talk about it." And we basically were hanging out a whole bunch during that week. And it's so funny. He's watching everyone dance, and Sonny was also someone who employed Sugar Sullivan and Barbara Billups, who are two other elders. I think Sugar is now in her 90s, and two other elders in the community. But Sonny was someone who employed and helped to teach them.
And they did shows. They were like professional performers.
Sonny Allen and his Rockettes. You know, they had an act that they toured up and down the East Coast with, and went to actually to Paris and stuff. I'm talking to Sonny, and his whole thing is different, I think, than what Frankie is, or even how we do the dance. Like when we dance now, he's like, you know, y'all like to run around each other. Like it's so circular, and like you really work hard. And he is from the cloth of like, he said this a whole bunch of times. He was like, but you don't need to do all that. You just, now he's from a time that's more gendered in his approach, but I will use his language because it's what he said. But we all, with maturity and grace, can say, woman, follow it, whatever. You just like hold your partner, you hold the girl, whatever, and you dance with her. All you really need is 2 steps. You know, you're dancing. What do you say? You guys are dancing like you're dancing like you have way more than just 2 steps. You know, you just hold the girl and you look at her in the eyes and you dance with her. See, then you just dance. And you don't have to do all this running around and turning and flipping and flopping. If you did that in my time, a girl wouldn't want to dance with you. You know, and so, but the way that he talked about it was so, like, if you guys could see the way his pupils dilated, he was like, no, you gotta dance with her.
Yeah.
And he talked about, I think his flavor of Lindy Hop was more, as you can see, more upright. He didn't like to, like, his pulse did not come so heavy in his knees. His body didn't rock so much. And he liked to dance in a very linear way. But he also, I think, never said, you guys are wrong. He was just like, this is a different flavor. Like, you're a different generation. You have different inspirations. And so you move differently. He watched the teachers come up with a performance and was like, that's a lot of work. But like, I'm not gonna say that it's wrong. It's just not how I would approach it.
Yeah.
Anyways, I love that I got to have that experience.
I do think though, like, not to derail us from watching more clips, but I feel like that's like one of the things, like, from watching a lot of these clips and stuff like that, and like whenever you hear them talk about like the significance of dancing and the Savoy was a party, and you go and you're like, you're hanging out with your friends. You know what I mean? I feel like one of the issues that we have as a community, because a lot of us come from a place of not having a dance background, and especially not having a partner dance background. Like all of these cats, like partner dancing was in the water for everybody, you know, like white people, black people, everybody's partner dancing back then, you know? And so like, it wasn't a big thing to just grab somebody's hand and do some stuff, but to us, it's a big thing. So I feel like we have so much to learn as far as that goes, that a lot of the times we get buried in all of that stuff and we lose the whole purpose of the thing, which is hanging out with a friend, you know?
Yeah, so that for me is inspiring. The talk is like elders and heritage, a form of inspiration. And I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but there's a lot, it can feel sometimes like you hit a plateau in your dancing if you're like really working or training and you're looking for something new. And what I found actually is that I go against that attitude that I had in the beginning, where it's like, I gotta make this fresh, I gotta make it cool. My new attitude is like, well, I have a lot of dancing and that's a part of my story. Like I have a hip hop, I have a house background. Like that's gonna come out in the way that I move naturally. I don't have to like make it fresh. Jazz actually has a place for that. Sonny moves the way he does because Sonny super loved Latin dances too. So because he did like a ton of like salsa and samba and mambo and all that, like Sonny's dancing also reflects the fact that I was into Latin dancing, so I did certain things. So
yeah,
I say to say, I like to go to look at the source because I don't feel threatened that looking at this will make me less of myself. I feel like I'm gonna be myself regardless, and looking at this keeps me rooted, like towards.
Like it's okay that you're not doing like a standard, like Lindy Hop, a homogenized Lindy Hop. Like it has house influence because that's you. He has Latin influence because it's him. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I wanna take this and let's pivot to talk about George Lloyd.
Yeah.
So you talk about Margaret Bodychalk's thesis, and this is actually the first video that I found after I was with Lorraine, which is so interesting because if you've seen me dance, I like have a lot of energy, and it's funny because over the course of a couple of years, I've actually been working really hard to not do that so much because it's not sustainable. But like,
I need to work harder than that. Like I will kill myself.
But George Lloyd, he really challenged things. You can imagine what I was like when I went to her and I was like, I'm gonna do all this shit. I have all these ideas, and then I see this guy dance, and we're not gonna be able to see him dance, and I actually regret that. But he has this.
Look him up on YouTube. He's got lots of stuff on YouTube, you guys.
This name, if you just YouTube George Lloyd, there's a lot of good things. He has a video dancing with Frankie. You should compare and contrast their styles. Yeah. Because George Lloyd makes a lot of statements about how he dances that it's it challenges a little bit of. Though we think about things if we say that Frankie is the blueprint. Yeah. And we can see that now. Oh, wait. When you get to a point where you... No. Here.
When you get to a point where you just go, let the floor do the work for me. Some dance, the floor do the work.
Does it start there?
Yeah. Some dancers dance as though it's a job. Some move as though they float on a cloud nine. When you get to a point where it's going to feel like a job, like you're doing a job, or you out there working or out there.
Okay. But so this thing he says, some dancers dance like, and it feels like they're like working hard, like they're trying to do a job. And he's like, some dancers when they dance, it feels like they're on cloud nine. And that's the difference for me. When I dance, I want to be on cloud nine. He goes on to talk about how he likes to wear leather soles. And because, he used to move like Frankie. Every, I think, young person is like, I have the energy, I'm doing the thing. But
old Frankie dances like young Frankie.
But also, old Frankie is a genetic anomaly.
Yeah.
Old Frankie's like back muscles are like.
You should like if you watch that thesis, he's like in his 80s. Yeah. He's jacked and he's sexy as hell. Anyhow.
I seen a video, bro, like with his shirt off and
he looks great.
I was like, dude, you're in better shape than me. Like, what the heck?
No, it's true. He's a genetic anomaly.
Genetic anomaly for sure. Mm-hmm. Like muscles on his forehead. Anyway,
Musclehead Manning, right?
but go ahead, do your thing. But basically, in the video, George Lloyd goes on to talk about like how he also had some back injuries. But when he danced, he started to wear leather soles. And if you watch him, if you go and you research him, he stands very straight and he slides a lot. And he actually has a really small and minimal way of dancing. He's not like a Frankie. There's actually a clip of him and Frankie dancing back and forth with the same follow in a dark room right in front of a small stage. And Frankie is very like, he's very like big, with his movements. And then George Lloyd is like this, like real small, very up here, brings somebody here, like does a slide and a little turn, like this kind of thing. And so he's really big on this light and soft approach to the dance. Yeah, which is like, it's different than the way we think about it when we have Frankie in the center.
When you get to a point when it's going to feel like a job, like you're doing a job, or you out there working hard, when you can get out there and relax, you can relax on the dance floor, then you'll find yourself a good dancer.
I can imagine that dancing inspired them. Other places you see where music inspired dancing. The best music is the music that is written for dance.
Dizzy Gillespie.
Because dancing enhances music.
Wait. I gotta say something about this. It's so profound that Dizzy is saying this because Dizzy is not a swing musician. Dizzy loves bebop and Dizzy pioneered the Afro-Cuban style. So like a lot of people who are like, bebop, you can't swing out to bebop. Like here you have a bebop musician saying, oh, I imagine that dancing inspired the music and there's like this relationship of the growing. And I love that because it I think that there's a centrality of expression that it like moves further than like, oh, I need these characters to dance. And it implies to me that back in the day, they didn't give a fuck about like, well, it's not ending on a perfect phrase. So I can't swing out to this. Like, how do I get 3 swing outs in a circle if it's, in 7/8? And I think you have a bebop musician saying, no, there were hella dancers,
Yeah.
There's another clip you guys should look up. I'll tell you more about it later, but let's keep going. Barry Harris.
We write that down, please.
Super kind of emotion that was that same feeling that you get between the dancers and the musicians. It's a happy explosion, I guess you could say, happy explosion.
Okay, we'll move on. But I think
That's a fun clip too. It's a Cab Calloway clip.
And for me, I think it's super good. For me, watching a dancer like George Lloyd, even though I'm not super in his affectation, I know a lot of dancers that move like George. And I respect that a lot. I think it's super dope. And for me, the existence of George Lloyd next to Frankie then validates, okay, there are other approaches. How versatile can I be? Because if I only drink from one pool, how much about the fullness of what this is do I really understand?
Yeah. And I think also like so much of what we get is what we happen to get because somebody filmed it as well. And you have to be in like a really particular position to get filmed, and like, I don't know what kind of taste, Herbert White had, you know what I mean? Because he like curated Whitey's Lindy Hoppers. And so maybe there are a whole bunch of people who are like really excellent dancers at the Savoy that move differently that just weren't to Whitey's taste as well. So like we have such a tiny piece, Yeah, so interesting.
I agree. No, I agree. I really agree.
And then speaking of versatility as well, like dancing to bebop and stuff like that, I think like an issue that I have with our scene right now, if I'm going to get on a soapbox, is like everything kind of revolves around classes, which is great for us. We teach, we make money. I love that. I love living. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like everybody, because of the way the world works right now, you get used to like, you dance between 130 BPM and 180 BPM. And those are going to be your sweet spots. And they're going to have this kind of swing rhythm. And it's going to have this kind of feel. You know what I mean? And so then you learn all these moves, and they work really well to those songs, and they work really well with a certain amount of space around you and stuff like that. And then you get in like on a dance floor, and if you're presented with something outside of that, it gets kind of complicated. And I feel it kind of boxes you into all of the stuff that you learned in class, when I feel like that's such like a hollow representation of what people do, you know? Like, and because of the partner stuff, we teach increasingly more complex moves, which I love also, you know what I mean? Like, I'm the problem. Cool moves are so cool, you know what I mean? But it's like a tiny piece of what you have on the dance floor, you know? Like, you don't want to take away from that purpose. You don't want to take away from your ability to be with the music, no matter what the music is. And no matter who your partner is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the music is king in all regards, especially with Lindy Hop. So I have a couple clips. I have Harvest Moonball stuff. And then I have some. I want to like pivot away from Lindy Hop for a second. But first of all, before I want to talk about, when we talk about that 130 to 180 BPM thing, Norma is like famously, you know, stop slowing down my dance. You know, it's interesting. Like, there's definitely a plurality. There's many different approaches. Black Americans are not. We don't all have the same perspective, and even the elders don't all have the same perspective. Sonny was like, bro, Sugar be telling y'all all kinds of stuff that ain't true. And so it's funny to be next to Sonny and then hear Sonny tell me about a story, and then look at, in the States, there's an event happening at the same time called the Uptown Swing Out.
And Sugar's there.
Yeah, and you know, there's all kinds of things about how Black people interact with each other and the way that their generation interacted with white people, because when they were coming up, it's not like things were equal between them and white people. So there's a level of like kind of a face you wear, you know, because that's just what you grew up. If you grew up in a time where people are actually being lynched and like Jim Crow exists, segregation is real, even if you grew up in a ballroom that's integrated because it makes money to be integrated. Like, what did Frankie say? He said, I dance in, like, if I made it to the Cotton Club, then I know that I made it as a dancer. Y'all, the Cotton Club was not integrated. Like, not in the way that Black dancers went there, they performed, they could not eat, they could not sit with the patrons. The Nicholas brothers got away with it, but it's because they were young and they were cute and they were talented, but not, I mean, everybody else was in and out, you know? And so,
and through the kitchen, Duke Ellington through the kitchen.
Exactly. So I think that's one thing.
Can I like mention one thing? Because I feel like this is a really complicated issue for, especially for non-American audiences. Because like Lindy Hop is really American and really Black American, which is very removed from a lot of people elsewhere in the world, you know? And so like talking about things like the day earth races and stuff, and like the poverty that they were put into to fit the mindset, you know? And like the thing that really stands out to me is like the Leon James, you know, doing this kind of thing because the director told him to, which like that's a move that goes back to minstrelsy and stuff like that, you know? And so you have these really revered clips that still exist in this historical setting. And then you have people who are like, man, I love that clip. I'm going to copy that clip and I'm going to do the same stuff. And so they're doing like the Leon James stuff, but not knowing that it's connected. So it's like, sometimes I feel like difficult for people to, like Josephine Baker doing like this sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Because she's connecting it to like the jungle idea that people expected and wanted, people as in the white audience, you know? And so it can be kind of difficult for people that don't know American history to detangle perhaps what is Lindy Hop and what is something that was put onto it because white people wanted to see it. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. Okay, this is the thing. A lot of my research encapsulates like this happened during the Harlem Renaissance. So I've read stories from Harlem Renaissance poets, and they talk about Lindy Hoppers and stuff. Like you can find information everywhere if you look, because culture is always connected to other culture. Langston Hughes, I don't know if you know him, but he's like one of the most. He's my favorite poet. Langston Hughes wrote a short essay called The Big C. In the short essay called The Big C, there's a section called When the Negro Artist Was in Vogue. And it talks about white gaze. It It talks about white people coming to, what his perception of white people coming to Harlem in the first place, what it was. And to me, it seems more realistic than the very happy, painted over image that we get. And I think we just always need to have that context in mind. Langston Hughes says that, like, you have to also understand that, like, a lot of these people that were coming over were richer. They didn't always come from, they weren't in the same social status as these people. And a lot of times when you have money, you have access to opportunity. Like, somebody can change their life by swinging out and doing something that they always did. And then you want them to do something else. Like, you have to understand that, like, white gays, if you have the access to institutions and the way to distribute something, you have control over what that thing looks like, which means you kind of have control over the very essence of that thing. And so when we see A Day at the Races and we see the minstrelsy that's happening, I think we just have to have a healthy awareness. Like, whenever we're processing some of these old clips and you see like a facial expression or something like that, that stuff, people were not actually doing that. But a lot of that stuff, if you hear the term Jim Crow, it's like a stereotype for a black guy. A lot of that stuff is people having to play a role because a white director, a white person that had the access, they had the money, they had the institution, they had the way to distribute the dance, said, yeah, I'll distribute it, but I want you to do, like, you have to do this thing too, because it's like, you know, I have an idea of you that I want to put out, even if it's not accurate to what you are.
I don't know what the story is.
Yeah.
But I would also say there's like, even if the director wasn't like, you have to do this, if the director was like, oh, and it would be great if you did this, and they weren't even trying to be shitty, but they were coming from like a space of ignorance.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
No enthusiasm. This is the thing, guys. I think leading with curiosity and always having questions, if you're looking at stuff like this, is important.
Yeah.
Like, I always ask why, and not just how they did something, but why would they do something. If I'm watching a Harvest Moonball clip, or if I'm watching Pops and Louie here, who are two tap dancers, they have a great flash dancing act, and I like looking at them for solo, or Chuck Green, and I like looking at him for solo as a tap dancer. When I'm looking at these things, I'm not looking at just what they do, but I have this question of why would they make that choice? Because that why matters, and that impacts what my execution then would be, or what my response to that thing would be. And especially, I think it's important to have care when you're interacting with the Black American legacy, because a lot of it, with this in particular, is messy. Because racism is just all in there. It's a part of how it was germinated and how it grew and how it spread. That being said, I'm not saying this so that, like, now that I've said that, don't waste any time like feeling bad about it. Just be mindful and try to be a good human being, and like be like wise in how you look at and take in information. The Black American experience also isn't, I think it's significant to me because it's a part of the culture of my people, and it's a part of my own story, but like there are stories of people being oppressed everywhere, right? Like everywhere. There are all kinds of identities, even in Spain, there are tons of small identities, the Basque people, the Catalan people, like there are identities that like we are dealing with. You have an experience, I think, that is parallel if you try hard enough to understand. And if you know what that's like from your cultural perspective, somewhere in your history or somewhere in your culture, then like, okay, cool, I'm gonna try to reach out and touch something else with a sense of respect. Oh, I'm from Eastern Europe, I don't have a way to connect to Black Americans. I mean, yeah, you do. If you're from a small Eastern European country that used to be taken over by the Soviet Union, you know what it's like. You have an identity. Like, you have an identity that you care about. You have something that maybe makes you feel small, 100%. If you're a woman, you have something like that. If you're a man, you have something like that. If you're queer, you have something like that. Like, human beings, like, life is kind of dealing with hard stuff. And this art is a way to process it. Now, as we take in the art, we have to just be mindful. Life is about dealing with hard stuff. So sometimes the art has hard stuff in it.
Yeah.
We shouldn't waste time feeling bad about it, but we should just be careful with how we hold it. Okay, I want to just look at one of these things. I will do this one because it has solo and Lindy. Boom. And I actually don't know the names of these dancers. I'm still looking that up. But I look at something like this, and for me, tap is super important in the way that I do solo, because tap was the blueprint before we had vernacular jazz in the 40s. Tap was buck and wing, and then tap dance became really popular. And then in the 40s, when the music became more syncopated, dancers put the rhythm in their bodies instead. So by looking at tap dance, I can understand more about solo because it's historically connected because tap dance comes first. So a lot of the choices they make with their bodies are things that I can do. Now this is like a flash act, so this is
Yeah, it is.
this isn't necessarily something that I would say you guys have to do.
But this is what you're teaching tomorrow.
I mean, when I teach some solo things, I say like, I do a really shitty interpretation of that, and I'm like, cool, this is where I got it from.
Yeah.
That was cool. And then they have Lindy Hoppers, and I love this.
Oh man, I know this clip. But this version is so blown out, it's hard to recognize.
It's blown out.
Yeah, Leon James is on the left. Dancing very unlike himself, I think.
Yeah.
Like real energetic.
I select this version because it has the tap at the beginning.
Yeah,
solo
yeah.
at the beginning. I love this guy. So easy. And it's like, it's little details. Like when I watch stuff like that, you watch with the eye of a child. And I think the eye of a child, like, it's hard for me to squat on my heels, like keep my heels down. I can do it, but I had to train it. Because when my dad would squat down, he would squat on his toes. And I remember being a little boy and watching my dad squat on his toes and going, okay, cool, that's how I do that. And then I squat on my toes because I saw my dad do it, you know? But I noticed, can you imagine a child with cars and candy and everything around him in the middle of a store, seeing his dad squat a certain way and going, oh, that's a small detail. I'm gonna do that.
As a mom, right?
Yeah.
Like very aware of like my most thoughtless act could be like, and this is all of life.
Yeah. Mindlessly cuss in front of
Right. Well, it was like my mom doesn't like ketchup, so I don't like ketchup. Gross.
100%. Like I like apples because my dad was like, apples are the best when I was 6, and I was like,
And you're like, noted.
apples are the best.
The best.
No, but I say to say, like it'll be little things like you notice. For me, what I look at that and I like how they kick back in the Charleston. I
Yeah.
don't see people do that so much. We always focus on the flare in the front, the leg kicking around, or some kind of cool rhythmic syncopation. But these guys are just like really kind of chugging in the rhythm, and they just have this like sinking moment, and then their bodies are really outstretched. The tap dancers, when they did their, whenever they would do this twist, were really reaching for like this, like, make sure I don't kick that, because I've kicked someone before doing something like this, like in the stomach. But like have this like really like flat presentation of their upper body. They're like really elongated. And then I look at like the modern community or look at my dancing and I'm like, I don't necessarily dance like that.
Yeah.
And so because I see that little thing, okay, cool. Why would they do something like that? And what does it mean for me to try to put that on my dancing or to work to grab something that maybe I didn't have before? And so yeah, I think these are just a few clips. You can watch the Chuck Green thing. I wanted to talk about the importance of tap. But I'm sure we're over now because it just feels like it's been an hour.
No, we have 2 minutes.
Oh, hell yeah, let's get into it. No, but my thought process when I'm looking at these things is not what not just what are they doing, but why. Why are they making the choices that they make? And it's super important. So I look at, for solo, I don't just look for jazz. I'm looking so much at tap dancers. Mm-hmm. And I think as Lindy Hoppers, we actually should just throw that term out. And maybe like Lindy Hoppers is cool. We should think of ourselves as jazz dancers. If you really love and you want to grow, I'm assuming if you're here and you're talking about elders being inspiration, you like want to be around, think of yourself as a jazz dancer. And then there are all these things all these parts of jazz dance expression that we see that we can work for. Mm-hmm. We can work to be better Lindy Hop for sure, and we can try all the flavors of Lindy Hop, but then we should know some soft shoe. We should be able to reach for some tap steps, like Frankie could.
Yeah, and that's like what a lot of our stuff is based off of.
Exactly.
Is like the reason why we do it is because it used to make a sound.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And so there's also this beautiful thing for me that's happened where, a lot of people see my Lindy Hop and they go like, oh, I see your influences. You're so, you're modern, blah, blah, blah. It's really funny though, because when I dance hip hop or when I'm in house spaces, they're like,
well, you're so old school.
I see your other influences, And so it's kind of had this thing of the more that I'm trying to learn jazz, what I find is that the jazz enhances the other parts of my dancing.
Yeah.
And I don't think
I would say I'm learning. No. Let's do this first. Yeah.
Okay. But I like them because the energy is relaxed. And again, I'm pointing towards a lot of relaxed examples because I think in our community, and I would say especially in Spain, I think Spain has one of the younger communities out of all the countries that I've visited, just generally. A lot of people are, younger than 40. Which isn't to say that it's bad if you're older than 40, but I meet.
Thanks, Tyedric. Thank you.
but I've met a lot of young people who have still how do you say, like the pride of youth, like, that.
Oh.
Like, I'm gonna live forever. Let's swing out full length, 220 for 5 minutes straight. Like,
I still have that.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm going for genetic anomaly. That's what I want.
Yesterday we were social dancing and the song was fast as shit, and I tried to do a half tempo thing, and then when we finally got kicking again, I was gonna slow it down, and you were like, I messed it up, so we kept on going, and you were like, I thought you were gonna slow it down again. Fuck.
No, but I thought the band was gonna slow down again. That's what I meant.
It's like, dang, let me see.
I do my best not to throw shade at the dancer I'm dancing with during the dance.
But I like these guys because you see like the relaxation in the upper body, the relaxation in the legs. And so I ask myself, like, okay, as I shift my weight, even if I'm doing something simple, like a crossover or a triple step, how can I show relaxation in my body? Even when they reach for these cool things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that might be something that I'm taking
cool.
for my solo.
I'm totally taking that.
I can imitate it.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, like the circle slide shit. Nasty. Yeah.
And so I see something like this, and I say to myself in my solo, okay, cool. How can I have more relaxation, more sauce, more? Because that's what I see is poise. Like they're doing. That's some high level. That like 18 sounds is like it looks like I just slide my leg across the floor. It's like high level. The shifting off single leg wings, like I'm running and just winging on a single leg, is like and actually a really athletic thing. If I tried to do it, it would look really big. But they have this sense of like I'm so in control of my weight and where my balance and where I'm placed that like I can do this crazy stuff, and it's like.
And they've been doing it for years. If they live in it.
Smooth with it, baby.
Yeah.
And so something like this, like, okay, how, why, and then that becomes a goal for me. Sonny also made this point, and he talked about like tap dance and why he doesn't like Savion Glover, because he's like, Savion Glover just has no class. Like, he's a great dancer. He says, I love to listen to him, but I hate to look at him. He's always down in the ground.
Yeah.
And, I was working on like a tap Charleston step in front of him. And his big thing was like, he was like, nah, man, you gotta like, his big thing was how I presented my upper body and the way that I move my hands. So the hands is where you show your class. And
that's very Nicholas Brothers.
Yeah, he was very much focused on dancing and really showing something rather than it being like just an exhibition of athleticism. So, this is the way these are the lessons actually that I'm currently like kind of hyper-focusing on in my dancing. But I hope at least in the process of seeing me kind of talk about this stuff, you see a little bit of why I even care about it in the first place. Even if it's not so evident in my dancing yet, these are huge things that I'm really holding in my heart. I think my favorite dancers have a great balance. Like in the modern community today, I see them be able to reach and they show like fire in their hearts and they have this intense energy, but then they can also, it looks so easy. It looks so relaxed and so and then I look at the elders and I see the same thing. So I'm like, cool, this is like the next frontier. This is what we work on. Not just what they do, but why and how. There was supposed to be, we wanted to talk a little bit about like where you can go to get more resources. And actually, if you just look up my name on YouTube and you go to my YouTube page, I have a playlist called Inspiration. And like I put everything that in there. If I find something new, I put it in there. And then I would also encourage you, this is something that's a little bit harder, but maybe even, I found Lindy Hop stuff in an archive at a dance festival that happens in one of the most recluse areas of the States. Only super rich people go to this dance thing, and they had stuff with Lindy Hoppers in London dancing back in the 80s. So Lord knows, like we know that the Lindy Hoppers and stuff were traveling around the world. If you guys go and you try to do research in your own libraries, and look up code names like, ID's Lindy Hoppers or Authentic Jazz or Tap Dance. Who knows what you may find if you just look in your own communities for how you may connect to this thing. Maybe it's not a dancer, but you find that musicians were here and musicians taught someone in your community that you know, that you like, even if that person made a different kind of music. And then you find like, okay, so then I was brought up in something that was also influenced by jazz. And there's a way to find connections this way when we also do research. I would advise you, it's super hard, not everybody has its resources, but if you can ever go to the New York Public Library, there's
a lot.
You could spend forever in their archives just studying. There's videos that they have on there that are not on YouTube, some of them that I illegally recorded with my phone, but
they're kind of cool with you illegally recording stuff, just don't even worry about it.
They're super cool with it. But I think if you can ever get out there, if you're ever in New York, or even if you do your local libraries, that's also a place to do research because YouTube only has so much. And looking at elders for sources of inspiration. Go to my page and see that playlist, or I invite you to check out your own communities.
I think the one thing that I would add is like for me, I feel like I came at original clips a little bit late because they're blurry. A lot of the times the music's not timed very well. And so like, I felt like it was difficult to see how excellent the dancers are. And so if you feel like you're part of that, like, man, I really want this stuff because people seem to really think it's important, but it's really hard for me to watch it. You know what I mean? Like if you can give yourself a little bit sympathy, like the more you learn, the more you see the better a dancer I get, the more I notice them doing, you know? And so just like keep on checking in, keep on looking at different sources, and eventually the value becomes so apparent.
Yeah.
At least that's what happened for me.
I totally agree. And I think that it's the safest way to navigate the community to try to find a connection to this stuff. Like me and Victor taught a workshop just now, and one of the things that we ask people to think about is like, what's a lesson or a value that you have that you learned from an elder? And you might say like, oh, well, I never knew an elder. But you don't have to know them personally to learn from them. Like Al Menz has interviews up on YouTube. Don Hampton has interviews that you can find if you look on YouTube. Like there's a bunch of tap dancers that have interviews that you can find if you look on YouTube. Musicians have interviews that you can find. And if you try to search for all of these things, like Dizzy Gillespie saying, like talking so much about how the dance and the music is connected, and he's a bebop musician. You know? We find this kind of synthesis of value. So and you can learn even from that stuff. So interviews are important, almost even more so than the dance stuff, because it teaches you about
the mindset.
How to hold it. And the mindset is, I think, the most important part, because that's the
why you're talking about.
That's the why. Yeah. So yeah, I would invite those things. Cool.
Yeah. We're over.
Yeah. Sorry, we were supposed to do some questions Q&A, but we are out of time.
So thank you guys for coming to
please give a super big applause. That was amazing. Thank you to Laura and Tyedric for the inspiration. That was amazing. Thank you guys.